Good morning, Napa Valley Unitarian Universalists, and welcome to our online worship service. I am Reverend Dr. Leisa Huyck, and I am the minister here, and with us this morning as our celebrant is Maggie Ingalls, your treasurer. You are welcome here if you come skipping with joy, and you are welcome if you are heavy with sorrow. You're welcome if you're deeply lonely, and you're welcome if you're surrounded by friends and family. You're welcome whomever you love, whatever your gender, whatever your skin color, whatever your education, whatever your beliefs about God or not God, and whatever the flags of your heritage. You are welcome if you're looking for a community that will love you just as you are. And you're welcome if you seek a community to help you grow. Whoever you are and whatever your need, you are welcome here. All this month, we are asking ourselves the question, what does it mean to be a people of stillness? What a question to ask during what for many is the busiest month of the year. Hanukkah, the winter solstice, Christmas, so many festivals of light during this time of increasing darkness. Yet this year is different, isn't it? We don't have the same numbers and kinds of activities calling us together in person. Maybe we can find a silver lining in this terrible cloud of the pandemic. Perhaps we can take advantage of our enforced isolation and find times of stillness to nurture our souls. Let us explore that question today. Come, let us bring our whole selves to this time together and let us worship. We'll begin by centering ourselves through music.
I'm listening. I am listening. Spirit, speak to me. I'm listening. I am listening. Spirit, speak to me. My ears are wide open. My eyes are now open to see what I may be. I'm listening. I am listening. Spirit, speak to me. I'm listening. I am listening. In this moment of Spirit, speak through me. I can hear the voices of all my kind. I'm listening, singing. I am listening, the tweeting and howling into the wind. My ears are wide open, and oh, the joy. My eyes are wide open, oh, the love to see and what hear for you and me. Oh, I'm listening in this moment of silence. I am listening. I hear Spirit speak through me.
Each Sunday, Unitarian Universalists all over the world light a chalice, the symbol of our faith. You are invited now to light your own chalice at home as I speak these words from Reverend Barbara Stevens. Let this be a place of warm and gentle silence. the silence that soothes and comforts the wounded, the silence that yields insights into heart and soul, the silence that calms, the silence that listens, the silence that speaks, the silence that renews. Let this be a place of warm and gentle silence. I invite you now into a moment of receptivity and reflection as we share the joys and sorrows of this community. We make sacred the milestones of our lives when we share them with each other. We have here a bowl of water and some stones. If you have a joy or a sorrow that you would like to share with all here, you can type it into the chat and then choose a stone to represent what you have shared. If you have a joy or sorrow that you don't need to share with everyone, just type the word stone into the chat and choose a stone to represent what you are keeping in the silence of your heart.
When we share our sorrows and our joys, we weave a web of love and care that lifts and supports us all. Now, let's go deeper. I invite you to make yourself comfortable wherever you are. Close your eyes if that's helpful, and let your body find a posture of both attention and relaxation. Feel how your body is supported by your seat by the floor, and the floor by the generous earth. Roll your shoulders a couple of times and shake out any negative energy your body may have. Place a hand over your heart and feel its beating, the first rhythm of your life. Feel how your heart unceasingly pumps blood through your circulatory system, taking oxygen from your lungs to every cell and gathering the waste carbon dioxide and returning it to your lungs. Offer thanks to your heart for doing this work without you even having to think about it. Now, receive a breath from the green growing beings of the world. Hold it for a moment to let your blood receive it, and then release that breath of carbon dioxide back to those green growing beings. Remain aware of your breath and your heart as you hear these words. Spirit of life, mystery beyond mystery. Now is the time when rain should be falling, but it is not. How we long for its sweetness. How we long to hear the sound of drops falling on roofs and streets, and the sound of soil drinking in precious moisture. But we must wait. We must wait. Now is also the time when it is cool enough at night for dew to form. Tiny drops of water on blades of dead grass, each reflecting the whole world. Deciduous leaves begin to fall, and with leaves gone, the bare bones of trees are revealed, life stripped to its very essence. Patterns become clear. Branches are the same as roots, are the same as blood vessels, are the same as rivers, are the same as neurons, are the same as the whole universe becoming. What is our essence? What do we reflect? What might we become? Let us be still and listen. Let us be still and know. Blessed be. Now let us join in a time of silence. The music will bring us out.
silence, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony. Seek the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let me flower, help me flower, watch me flower, carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
Our reading today is by Pablo Neruda. It was written in 1952. Keeping quiet. Now we will count to 12, and we will all keep still. For once, on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for a second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment. Without rush, without engines, we would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would not look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victories with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade, doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Now, I'll count up to 12, and you keep quiet, and I will go.
A few weeks ago, I was scrolling through my Facebook feed and had the strangest feeling. My head started feeling hot and crowded as if my skull were a pressure cooker. I literally felt like my head might explode. Now, I'm very careful about what I look at on Facebook. I don't do doom scrolling. I only look at posts from my friends about their lives and interesting science stories and beautiful nature photos. I participate in organizing for change, but I don't read all the details of abuse because I don't need those details to feel motivated to work for change. I try to take in only things that nourish me for the hard work of making justice. And still trying to follow just what's going on with my friends and in the world of science, not even peeking at political news, made my head feel like it was going to explode. So I wrote a note telling my friends I was going to take a few days away, and I did. After just the first day of my Facebook sabbatical, my head felt much cooler and clearer. After several days, I felt like a new person, calm and clear, with room in my head for ideas, able to think and plan and reason again. I wanted to stay off forever. But a lot of the organizing work that I do gets done on Facebook, and also it's the only place I have contact with most of my friends and colleagues. I'm afraid to leave Facebook for good, but now I only check it about once a week and I feel much better. One of my closest friends, a great Sufi leader, left Facebook for good on December 1st. It is the latest of his resolutions about how to live a reasonable life in these times. Every December 1st, he and his husband permanently give up something that they know is not good for them. It is part of their Advent observance, the way they honor the time of increasing darkness leading up to the winter solstice. When it gets dark, they stay in the dark. They disconnect from all screens and all electrical light. They wait and they listen in the dark. This friend once told me, during this season of Advent, we honor the energy of the Mother, the energy of Mary. This is a time of gestation, a time of pregnancy, a time of waiting to give birth. We go deep within ourselves, into the dark and the quiet, to see what is waiting to be born. Sufis are a little bit like Unitarian Universalists in that they find truth and beauty and wisdom in all of the world's religions. The main difference is that their spiritual practice and form of worship is dance, whereas ours involve words. So my friend and his husband understand that Advent, the season when Christians honor the time of waiting for the imminent coming of Christ, and then the Christmas story of his arrival, are overlain on the much more ancient Northern Hemisphere celebrations of the advent of solstice, the time when the night becomes longer and longer as she prepares to give birth to the returning sun. For my Sufi friends, there's no conflict between these two stories. One is simply overlain on the other so that both take place at once. I love the idea of disconnecting from everything artificial during the season of Advent, of waiting and listening in the stillness of the dark. When I was a young parent, it was impossible. There were school plays and basketball and musical performances and church events and cookie exchanges and tree trimming parties, making gifts, shopping for other gifts, baking, cooking. The list went on, And I have to say that even though it was a stressful time, I loved every minute of it. I have always loved the holiday festivities when humans face this time of increasing dark and cold with warm fires and candles and lights. When we fill our homes with gorgeous decorations and offer each other hot drinks and special sweets. When we sing old familiar songs and allow ourselves to feel unalloyed joy. Of course, not everyone gets to feel joy during this season. Those who are alone and lonely may feel only pain and grief. Those with unhappy families may have only bad memories of this time. Many churches have a blue Christmas service for all those who find this time of year to be the hardest they face. But what if there were something a little different? What if we did as my friends do? What if instead of ruminating on what we do not have and what we are not doing, we embrace what we do have, which is the dark? What if we could honor the dark as a time of retreat, a time of intentional stillness, a time of metaphorical gestation, of pregnancy, of going deep within ourselves to see what is waiting to be born? In this particular year, when many of us are feeling pain because we will not get to enjoy the gatherings and celebrations to which we're accustomed, this might be quite helpful. Stillness, darkness, quiet. These are often understood in our culture to be useless. The dominant narrative is that only when we are productive, only when we are extremely busy, are we worthy. As I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, this comes partly from the Protestant work ethic passed down to us from our Puritan ancestors. In a world in which humans could do nothing to bring goodness into an evil and corrupt world, and God had determined from the beginning of creation who would be saved and who would be damned for all eternity, prosperity was a sign of the elect. If you had material wealth for which you had worked very hard, that was a sign that you were one of the elect, the one of those who would be saved. This is the origin of the saying, idle hands are the devil's workshop. But another part of the problem is that we're all steeped in an idea called by its inventor in 1929, the gospel of consumption. The gospel of consumption begins with the premise that we are inherently unhappy. In order to become happy, we must continually buy more and newer stuff. This means we must continually work more and more hours to get the money to buy the stuff. This idea was specifically invented because American companies in the 1920s were worried that pretty soon they would be able to produce everything everyone needed for a whole year in just 6 months. This would mean people would only need to work 20 hours a week to provide everything their families needed. Imagine that. It was a big problem because the robber barons wanted to keep their factories going all the time to make the money they wanted. And they were very worried that a people with leisure time would become radical activists and overthrow the social order. It turned out that they didn't need to worry right away because then the Great Depression happened and then World War II happened. But after World War II, the same problem arose. Newspaper headlines were full of concern about the coming surplus of leisure time. The time was finally ripe for the gospel of consumption to take off and spread like wildfire. And it did, to the point where in 2005, 15 years ago, American couples worked 500 more hours per year than they had in 1929 to be able to buy all the stuff they thought they needed, and they spent 32 times as much on durable goods. On the impact side, Americans are only 4% of the world's population, but we use 25% of the world's resources, which means that we take what we need from other places, impoverishing ecosystems and peoples all over the world. If everyone in the world had as much stuff as we do, we'd need 5.5 planets. Our government uses the military to stabilize parts of the world where we extract resources and dump our waste, and most of the people in the military are poor people and people of color. Thus, the virus of consumption creates unnecessary poverty and war and endangers the health of the whole planet. In a culture that has been swallowed by this virus of consumption, there is no time for rest. There is no time for stillness. And yet, human beings need rest. We need times of stillness and quiet and dark. As for many living beings, these are essential parts of the cycles of our lives. Seeds are planted and grow in darkness. Only after they germinate and push a root down into the dark soil do they send a cotyledon up toward the light. Babies form and grow in darkness. We sleep best when we're still in darkness and quiet. Our powers of creativity are housed in the darkness of our skull. As Sherry Woodbury writes, "From the mysterious inner regions comes all poetry, all music. From the inner dark emerges all sculpture and dance, all the art and cultures that are the heritages of humanity, even consciousness itself. The great unsolved mystery of science resides in the deep unknown of ourselves." To be a poet, writes Wendell Berry, make a place to sit down. Sit down. Be quiet. And Adrienne Rich wrote, "The impulse to create begins in a tunnel of silence. Every real poem is the breaking of an existing silence. To take no time for stillness is as bad for us as to take no time to eat or drink." The Jewish tradition has a remarkable practice that came into being many thousands of years ago to enable humans to rest. That's the practice of Sabbath. Wayne Muller writes, "The ancient rabbis teach that on the seventh day, God created menuha, tranquility, peace, serenity, repose, rest in the deepest possible sense of fertile, healing stillness. Until the Sabbath, creation was unfinished. Only after the birth of menuha, only with tranquility and rest was the circle of creation made full and complete." In the Hebrew Bible, the seventh commandment Moses receives from God is to keep the Sabbath holy. In other words, in the Jewish tradition, it is just as important to completely rest one day a week as it is not to lie, steal, or murder. One of the great rabbis of the 20th century, Abraham Joshua Heschel, wrote that the Sabbath as a day of rest is not for the purpose of recovering one's lost strength and becoming fit for the forthcoming labor. The Sabbath is a day for the sake of life. What does this mean? Of course, we do need rest to recover our strength. We need to sleep so that our bodies can repair themselves and our brains can process the events of the day. But Heschel says this kind of rest is not what the Sabbath day is about. The Sabbath is about something bigger and deeper. It's about living in harmony with the beautiful world and celebrating and praising it. It's about ceasing work entirely and devoting oneself solely to the simple pleasures of relationship and the senses, as these are divine gifts, and therefore where the divine is most closely revealed. You may think it will never be possible for Americans to slow down and rest, that the combination of our unequal economy and the pandemic force workers to work every hour they possibly can, that poor people and people of color are especially in want of rest and especially unable to get it, that young parents have zero time for rest as they wrestle with work and homeschooling their kids. And it's true that inequality means that poor people have to work very hard and get little rest. But I'm thinking about one of my Jewish friends whose income happens to be below the poverty line. She says that the weekly Sabbath, or Shabbat, is essential to the well-being of her family. It is the way they recreate themselves and their world every week. They do not feel their poverty because from sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday, they turn everything off and dwell for 24 hours together in the quiet center of the heart of God. And I'm thinking of my youngest sister in her 30s, mother of a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. Like many parents, she's homeschooling her kids now while also working from home. Every day, she and her kids do yoga together, and every day they have a time of quiet mindfulness. They sit still and pay attention to what their senses are telling them and what feelings are arising in their hearts. In this way, not only do the kids get a time of stillness, but so does my sister. In what could be a horrible and stressful time, my sister's family is happier and calmer than they have ever been. And finally, I'm thinking of a story from the depths of the Great Depression, when things were far worse for most Americans than they are now. People were losing jobs right and left as company after company failed. But then a man named Mr. Kellogg had a new idea. He owned a cereal company, and he realized that if he cut the work week to 30 hours for his 3 shifts of workers, he could add a whole 4th shift. That provided 300 new jobs during the Great Depression. The workers were able to rest, to spend more time with their families, to educate themselves, and to build their community. Mr. Kellogg's idea worked. The workers were so happy that they continued to vote for the shorter work week clear up until the year 1984. Something different than the way things are is always possible. Humans have created this society, and we can change it. So in the midst of all the stress of both these times and this season, may we take some time for stillness. May we connect with the natural rhythms of life on earth. May we honor this Advent season of darkness and allow it to nurture something new inside us. And then, when the deep night gives birth to the glory of the returning sun, may we release the glory of change into the world. Blessed be.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This congregation depends entirely upon the generosity of its members and friends. All that we give in time, talent, and treasure is what sustains this community and makes it not just a sanctuary for us to return to for spiritual nourishment, but an oasis from which we can go out into the world carrying the waters of life. You can donate by going to the link that is in the chat now or going to our website at nvuu.org and clicking on the donate button. Or you can send a check to us at NVUU 1625 Salvador Avenue, Napa, California 94558. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Thank you for your many gifts of time, talent, and treasure. All you give and all you do are vital for sustaining not only this particular religious community, but also building the beloved community in the wider region. Now, I want to thank Maggie Ingalls for being our celebrant this morning. I want to thank Brian for not only contributing his beautiful music, but also putting together the video this morning. I want to thank the Unitarian Universalist Church of Sarasota in Florida for contributing their hymns for us to sing along to. Thank you so much. And I also want to thank Lee Morris for gracing us with her presence as our guest musician today. Thank you all. Now we will have our Zoom social hour after the service, and that'll be a time when we'll do questions, announcements, invitations into community, and we'll just socialize for a while. If you like, you might have a chance to discuss the sermon in a breakout group, but you might just rather stay and socialize with the whole group. So you'll have a couple of different opportunities, and I look forward to seeing you there. Our closing words come to us from Reverend Sandra Fees. Breathed into the world. Whoever you are, wherever you go, may you know the stillness of winter and the call to love. May you see the moon silvering the night sky and let the dark of midnight plunge you into your truest self and fling you back out again to a world in need of who you are. May there be the familiar carols you know by heart and new melodies to set you free. May there be feasting and frolicking, kindness and wonderment. And may there be wise people to follow a star in the east and a child to teach us to love and enough magic to let the imagination go wild, to let Christmas arrive with its enchantments, with its glitter, glow, and gold, to let what wants to be born break through. May the presence of the holy crowd out fear, hate, and worry, and proclaim in this moment that peace and goodwill might yet be breathed into the world, and a vow that we too can give birth to love wherever we go, whoever we are. Blessed be. Now let's sing our closing song, hymn number 86, Blessed Spirit of My Life. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts out into the world until we meet again. Now, people of this beloved community, in stillness may you rest. In stillness may you find what is longing to be born in you. In stillness, may you nurture that tender hope. And then in glory, may your light burst free. Go shining. Blessed be.